Good morning. Guys, if you've never seen a whipsaw, this is it. This is, I don't know, borderline crazy, I think, what this market's done this year. Obviously, news-driven, Trump rally, Trump attacks, Trump whatever. But, I mean, this one was like, okay, uptrend at that point was relatively new. Came out of the base and boom, and back up again. Not unusual. And here's, a bit of a longer term or a little bit deeper correction, but definitely more sideways in the retests and the whips. And then here's, the sell signal that we had gotten from the market internals. Here was the fake breakout and the shock and topping tail and, right back down through the 50 MA inside day, which should have resulted in maybe a little bit retest of more of the 50 or so. And like I had mentioned in a prior video, once it gets past 50% of the wide range bar, it's in question, because the best setups, meaning the ones where sellers are truly in control, they don't get past the halfway mark. And that's just a general setting. There's no resistance there, which you can see on this chart. However, what happens is that sellers stay in control and they create resistance. And so what does that mean? Well, you've heard me talk about the void concept, and here's the void, because of the momentum move, and then the move down, the momentum move down, then creates another void. One of the things I told you is that while this is a strong signal, it's the weakest link in the chart. Meaning, if the resistance here or the supply is not created, it just opens up the door to the complete move back to the upside. And it usually doesn't happen without a couple of days, 2 or 3 days down here rattling around, which builds a base and goes back up. But, a move down and a breakdown, minor breakdown failure, a V bottom and a straight back up, that's a whipsaw. It's kind of crazy. I guess we can say, hey, it was the news, but the question is, now it's at this wall of resistance. What is it going to do? It's going to go sideways. It's going to whip right back down again, because this leaves very little support. There's little shells, but it's not much. A couple of sideways days up here possibly could roll it right back down again. So we'll see. This is not normal, kind of a crazy type of price action that, doesn't happen too often, thank goodness. But, straight down, straight up, it's odd. All right, so NASDAQ was looking for a possible correction to the size of the prior one, as if we had the moves up. Well, obviously that didn't happen. Prices came down to basically nowhere, and just stopped and reversed. It was like, okay, we're not going to war, or Trump's not going to, press the big red button, and, right back up again, right up into this resistance area. But let's take a look at the actual ETF here. It's a little bit more in perspective, and we'll see if it gaps up here. It's up, what about 40 cents or so. And so, while we had this whipsaw, this downside shakeout, if you will, shakeout now that we can see it in hindsight, bullishly, it's got to go sideways here and absorb the supply. So here's the concept of when does supply absorb? Well, that's when you get a shakeout and a move back up into the resistance, and rather than going right back down again, it chops sideways and buyers continue to step up and absorb the supply, and then possibly back up again. We shall see what it's going to do here. So, a move like this into this type of congestion, it's best to stay away. I don't even think this would be good for day trading, since it's into this congestion here. This was something else where a day trader reasonably could have taken advantage. I mean, I don't really care for the V bottom types, but it, from a day trader's perspective, it certainly could have been playable, and much better doing, the futures, since you have a 24-hour chart, right? So that's the NASDAQ futures. Now, there is the Dow futures, pretty much the same pattern. Downside shakeout, up, higher low, and off it went, back up here. Now it's to the top of the wide range bearish bar. This is your normal bullish correction. Breakout, it holds, little downward sloping flag, if you will, bottoming tails right on the 20. That's textbook. And now, this more of the type of price pattern of a wild, whippy type of top, whereas this is a more controlled type of congestion pattern that's bullish and does suggest higher prices. And then we'll just see what this does over the last several days coming. Many retailers coming out, Walmart, Foot Locker, Coach. Today's, big retail week for earnings, and we'll see how those things shape up. Oil, correcting back down. You had this big red day here, and this is what it's supposed to do. When you say a big red day, and then you get the inside day at the bottom of it, then right back down again. And this should continue to erode unless it can at least begin to change the trend on the intraday time frame. As I'm talking a little out of breath here, just got out of the gym, so catching my breath still. And what else we want to take a look at? Bonds. Whipped back down again. I guess, this market is one of whippy price action, whipsaws and such, and we get moves in a few days and then back to the chop and whipsaw again. Russell. So here's, a couple of things to be keeping an eye on. Right? Deep oversold, holds the 200, back up again, coming up into minor resistance. So relative weakness in the Russell. You've got the transports making this W bottom here. We'll see how far it's going to get. I had mentioned Delta and other airlines yesterday. Delta gapped up and went nowhere. A lot of things gapped up and pretty much went nowhere after the first hour of the trading day. NVIDIA came back strong and right back up after hitting the 50 MA and right back up into the resistance there. But again, wild type of price action. So what's driving things right now? Well, as far as internals go, breadth got deeply oversold, so some type of a bounce was anticipated. Historically, when you get that oversold, the market does make a counter move. Breadth here is getting more toward a neutral level as it comes up, and sentiment is neutral. And let's just see where they closed. The option traders closed things at yesterday as far as, okay, so they got, more bullish as it went up. The MA is neutral, whereas into the close, they were buying calls. So that could put a cap on things for today at least. Just be aware of that. I never like to be on the same side of the option traders. And that sentiment reaches an extreme even for one day. And let me just take a look at, Snap yesterday had a great comeback. Maybe, maybe there's a bottom here. We shall see. So maybe this was an exhaustion gap, I said the other day, and, they gave it one more gap down for good measure. Notice the volume here. Let's see if you can get back up into this congestion there, and maybe there's a low here for this decimated stock Snap. And what else we have here? MU coming back, nothing of real interest there. Microsoft down a little bit here this morning. And what else? I'm just looking at my list here. Tiva. Is this thing going to bounce? This is your classic climactic buy setup, Gap down, crushing, some narrowing ranges, bottoming tail doji. Yesterday, you tried to get going, it couldn't. Builds up a little bit more of a support here. And let's see if we can get this thing going. These are usually good for a tradable bounce for a day or two. So there's an idea. We'll see if that can get going. FCX is on the list here, showing a little strength. This has moved up with the price of copper, which has been doing well of late. So there's a stock that might be able to get going again. So there's copper. Here's where some of the strength is in the market. Copper futures are doing pretty good here. They're chopping around intraday, but FCX is directly related to what the price of copper is going to do. All right, guys, I got to run. Have a great trading day. Hope that helps.